This video essay is dedicated to the late and great Jesse Brewsteris. You are gone but never forgotten, my friend. I hope you're doing well in the other life. Rest in power. So, professional wrestling's pretty weird. Most people like to call it soap opera for men, and I can totally agree with their thinking. But wrestling is for everybody and not just for men, you sexists. I picture it like reading a comic book. Not like a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, but like a Silver Age, really bizarre superhero comic book. The 90s were the peak of that, feeling like there were weird-ass gimmicks and the supernatural powers of some of these titans. It really did make them feel like real-life superheroes. I mean, you had the costumes, the monologues, and the power moves that felt like superpowers. My young brain felt exhilarated watching these guys. It would lead me to think that I could do the same things they were doing, and which led me to numerous cuts, numerous bruises, and unexpected trips to the ER. Thanks, Mom. I love you. But what makes wrestling so fun is the stories. Because I want to be very honest with you, pro wrestling stories are like watching live-action shonen battle animes. And I know what you're gonna say. Wow, you pathetic weeb. Not everything is related to anime. What are you gonna tell me next? That New Girl is a slice of life? Oh, maybe one day. Don't tempt me. Now, the reason I would say pro wrestling stories are just like shonen battle animes is because all of them are over the top. You have the pure-hearted dumb boys who just want to have fun and fight for the greater good. Then you have the badass edgelords characters who are brutal anti-heroes, who you love because all they want to do is prove their strength and show that they are the best. And then you have villains who are powerful and the greatest challenge for the heroes. They're unstoppable forces that can't be beat. But when you're able to overcome them, it is so rewarding and fun. Now, of course, like shonen battle animes, you have the occasional lame filler arcs in the story that can be kind of slow and unneeded. Now, I told you that wrestling is a live-action shonen battle anime, but there have actually been animes that have used pro wrestling to tell their stories. From Sexy Girls Wrestling and I Wanna Be the Strongest, to an actual isekai where a pro wrestler gets transported to a monster girl world where he suplexes monsters to stop them and opens up his own mythical pet shop called Kameno Michi. Then there is the one of the most notable ones people think about, which is Ultimate Muscle, which premiered on the Fox box when I was just a young lad. Being the sequel series to the original Kaneko Man, Kid Muscle is forced to take on his father's legacy and wrestle monsters for the sake of the galaxy. But today, we are talking about a wrestling anime that crosses from animation into live action, and that series is called Tiger Mask W. Tiger Mask W premiered in 2016, but this wasn't the first Tiger Mask anime we have ever had. The first actual appearance of Tiger Mask was a manga in 1968 created by Iki Kujiwara and Naoki Tsuji, with an anime coming out the year later, with a sequel anime that came out in the 80s called Tiger Mask 2. And in the middle of all this, there was even a bizarre Tiger Mask live-action movie that came out in 2012 that was like Power Rangers mixed with Fight Club. Listen, you'll just have to watch it to understand what I mean. But I had no idea about the subtle impact Tiger Mask has had on media. Tiger Mask has actually inspired a lot of video game characters. There are original sketches for Street Fighter II, which featured a wrestler in a tiger mask to be playable in the game.
Coincidence? I think not!
I wish they would have kept him because that would have been super rad. But then you have Incineroar from the Pokemon series, which is a pro wrestling cat humanoid who acts like a bad guy but is actually just a good cat thing with a heart of gold. Though technically he's based off of Tiger the Dark because of his type of fire and dark, showing that he may look bad and be mischievous, he's warm at heart. But the most iconic Tiger Mask inspired video game character is King from Tekken, who shares a lot with the anime character, from being basically a wrestling superhero in a cat mask, but this time a jaguar. But also there's a King too, who takes over for the original King because he's inspired by him as a child. Just like how in the 80s Tiger Mask 2 was inspired by the original Tiger Mask. But Tiger Mask has also impacted the real world. New Japan in the 80s decided to turn the wrestler into a Tiger Mask themed character inspired by the manga to help boost their junior heavyweight class. And since then, 5 people have portrayed Tiger Mask, with the recent and most well-known being Yoshihiro Yamazuki. But the biggest impact of Tiger Mask is not in the anime, pro wrestling, or even video games, but a real-world impact. It is known as the Tiger Mask donation phenomenon, which started happening on December 25th, 2010 in the Maebashi City, Gunma Prefecture. At a child guidance center, a random stranger left 10 30,000 yen, which is about equal to $360 backpacks, with a card that just said, "Please use the backpacks for children," signed Naoto Date. To clarify, Naoto Date was the name of the original character in the Tiger Mask manga. This random stranger used that name to hide his identity. This would then lead to a second donation in January 1st, 2011. This time, 6 backpacks were left with a note saying, "A New Year's gift, Naoto Date." The donation of the backpacks in the Gunma last year moved me deeply. My heart skipped a beat when I heard the news. Thinking I might do the same as well, I offered these gifts. May the Tiger Mask movement live on. This would lead to a bunch of copycats through the years, and also inspires other people to use Tiger Mask to mask. Ha 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 ha, get it? I'm sorry, I kinda ruined the flow. Their donations, or even more modern times using characters like Inosuke from Demon Slayer. So, the reason this is such an impact is because the ratio of charitable donations by Japanese is 52% compared to America, whose percentage is 82%. Japan has just been known to be more of a modest country, which makes them more reluctant to do good deeds in public. So doing good deeds as a fictional character allows them to do it without any recognition. Also, it is in the spirit of the original Tiger Mask, who just wanted to help children. And so the question I have to ask, was the act of kindness and the Tiger Mask movement the reason why we got Tiger Mask W? No. The answer is no, it was not. It was developed by Toei Animation in association with New Japan Pro Wrestling. New Japan Pro Wrestling was one of the most popular wrestling promotions in Japan. Basically, that's the reason why wrestlers appeared in the anime like the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada, Tetsuya Naito, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and one of my all-time favorite pro wrestlers, Kenny Omega. While also cross-promoting the anime in their actual wrestling matches, they made an actual Tiger Mask W character who was performed by Kota Ibushi, who had matches against actual characters from the show who were also wrestlers dressed up as them. And he actually even teamed up with the Tiger Mask of New Japan in a tag team match against Okada. So, Tiger Mask W is a wrestling anime that tells the story of 2 heroes going up the pro wrestling brackets in search of one thing: revenge for their fallen master. These 2 must clash against each other with a twist. They don't know they're after the same goal, and they're former best friends, but because they're both masked wrestlers, they don't know each other's identities. This plot is pro wrestling as fuck. First of all, Tiger Mask is a legacy name that has been in the wrestling community for years in the anime. This isn't the original Tiger Mask, but the second version of him, the first appearing years back. Legacy characters are very common in the world of pro wrestling. There is legacy by family name. You can look at people like Ric Flair's daughter, Charlotte Flair, taking on his legacy and being the next generation of heel, or Cody Rhodes taking on his father's title of the American Dream and turning it into the American Nightmare and shaping his own path. But what Tiger Mask W is a legacy character of idea and ideals. This is most common in mask wrestling, also known as luchadors. Take Pentagon, who has been wrestling since 1995, is a title that has been going on for 25 years, now having Pentagon Jr. being the most recent iteration of it. In Tiger Mask W, the Tiger Mask we are introduced to isn't the first Tiger Mask. The original Tiger Mask first wrestled to take down the evil wrestling promotion known as Tiger Den. It has been over 40 years, and this is actual real-time passing because the original anime came out 40 years before Tiger Mask W. The new Tiger Mask must face the new rise of Tiger Den. Now, you would think I just explained the entire series right there. And yes, that is the bare bone explanation, but there's so much more to it. What Tiger Mask W does is create an actual wrestling storyline both in and out of the ring by making the entire world kayfabe. And now, this is where the part where non-wrestling fans are going to be like, what on earth is kayfabe? Well, kayfabe is, in simplest terms, the fact or convention of presenting stage performances as genuine or authentic. Kayfabe was really big before the turn of the century, which was filled with a bunch of wild-ass gimmicks. You had a group of goth pretty boys calling themselves vampires, known as the Brood, giant colorful muscle men clashing in the ring and are larger-than-life like Macho Man versus Hulk Hogan, and a forever dead man, The Undertaker, that just never stops. But in reality, if you were to have met these people in real life, they were just normal people. So, in the world of Tiger Mask W, what happens is that the world of the outside ring bleeds out to the real world. There is no suspense of disbelief. What happened in the ring affects them outside of the ring, and I think it allows you to do more crazy things in the world of Tiger Mask. So, for example, in the middle of the series, there's a battle royale where you have to fight on top of a ring pyramid made to look like a Mayan temple. And you remember that this is an anime that uses real-life pro wrestlers, so out of context, it seems over the top and crazy and unrealistic. But in the first episode, you were introduced to the two main characters. One is climbing up a snowy cliff in nothing but spandex underwear, and the other one fucking suplexes a bear. So, like I said, in wrestling, in the real world, you would hear them tell stories of their over-the-top antics, but never actually see them outside of the ring. In Tiger Mask W, you see all the crazy stuff these guys are able to do. This is what makes Tiger Mask W a love letter to the idea of pro wrestling. The other reason why I think this is such a love letter to pro wrestling is the motives of the two main characters and how they go about it. Naoto, who is Tiger Mask, and Takuma, who is Tiger the Dark, are both after the same thing, which is revenge. When a wrestler known as Yellow Devil brutally injured their teacher, leaving him a paraplegic, while also injuring the two main characters both in their pride and some physical scars, the two vow to get their revenge against the Yellow Devil, but go in two different directions. Naoto would go off and train for years in secret to become the symbol of justice and righteous good guy Tiger Mask, while Takuma joins an evil wrestling corporation known as Global Wrestling Monopoly, aka GWM, to train and then don the mask of rival and villain in the eyes of Tiger Mask, his evil palette swap version called Tiger the Dark. In any other anime or comic, I groan when I see a dark version of the main character who has to fight them. I think that is one of the biggest problems of most of the Marvel films. But here it makes perfect sense because they may look like palette swaps of each other, and Tiger Mask the Dark seems like a Vegeta character, but he isn't a side character, but an actual another main character. What Tiger Mask W does for its storytelling is telling the story of revenge in the view of both a face and a heel. So again, this is the part of the video where I have to pause for non-wrestling fans and explain what a face and heel is besides it just being body parts. Well, they are terms for heroes and villains in wrestling lingo. The face is the good guy, a person who just personifies heroism. They play by the rules and come off as likable and fun. Some of the most iconic faces you imagine are people like John Cena, Daniel Bryan, and Hiroshi Tanahashi. A good face should inspire a sense of hope and love from the crowd. And what I love about Tiger Mask W is how you watch Tiger Mask grow to become a really good face, from his introduction in his first match to his final climax. And now, a heel is the opposite of the face. They are the bad guys you just love to hate. They can be mean, scary, and vicious. For me, I enjoyed more villains because of the fact the face has to be a goody two-shoes for the most part. With heels, they get a chance to be a bit more outlandish. You have heels who are just dickheads like AEW's MGF, but then you have unstable villains who are just final boss types like Rusev and Brock Lesnar. And you have bizarre, spoopy zombie monster men like Undertaker and The Fiend. In any other story, Tiger the Dark may have actually been considered a face, but because he's up against Tiger Mask and the rest of New Japan, and is trying to get revenge from within the company who messed up his life, Tiger the Dark is the perfect heel because of his design of basically being evil-looking Tiger Mask and his special move known as the Darkness Driver, which seems to be a homage to The Undertaker's Tombstone Pile Driver, as well as his motives to being a heel, which is, in order for him to get his revenge, he has to destroy and defeat wrestlers that are the pride and joy of his home country, Japan, to reach this ultimate goal of facing the Yellow Devil. But the best heel in the anime series is the Yellow Devil himself, but by the end, he's known as the Third. What makes the Third such a good villain is because he's a mix of Triple H and Brock Lesnar. And as well as his design, there is no way his appearance doesn't scream bad guy, because he is in fact the strongest wrestler in the global wrestling monopoly stable. Also, just like Tiger Mask, he's a legacy character, being the third person to take on the mantle of Tiger the Great. The Third is just a monster that feels unstoppable. For every person he wrestles against, it feels like he's unable to be beaten, taking down everyone who tries to stop him. An immovable force. I think one of my favorite parts, as I told you, is watching both Naito and Takamura having to struggle to become the best and reach their goals. And the thing that makes it so good is the outlandish stuff they had to do to get there. So let's take for example, Tiger the Dark in the beginning kind of feels like a jobber in comparison to Tiger Mask. A jobber is a professional wrestling term used to describe a wrestler who's routinely defeated by main eventers, mid-carders, and low-carders. Most promoters do not use the term because of the negative connotation, but in this matter, Tiger the Dark, it is his drive to be better. Because usually when you have jobbers, it's really hard for them to get back up into popularity. But in wrestling, you have a few that go from awful losing streaks and are able to actually make a name for themselves. Usually they go on some sort of hiatus to rework their character, and in the anime, Tiger the Dark does rework his character. He's more confident and he has his eyes on the prize. But how they rework him can only be done in an anime. You see, he's sent to an underground fight club after losing multiple matches. This is where he has to wrestle for both his career and even his own survival. The matches he faces in the underground fight club feel so raw and powerful. Which leads me to the action scenes in Tiger Mask W, because they are fucking awesome. To be honest, most of the episodes, the main animation is just very stiff and uninteresting, but where they don't skip on animation is in the fights, when they have to show off dynamic movements. One of the great things about animation is how you can exaggerate actions to make an impact. For example, when leading to a heavy impact, they'll distort the user's body to look more threatening and looks like they tower over the other person. Then, when the impact is about to happen, they zoom into the fist, the kick, or the grab. Then when the impact happens, you see movement lines and an impact effect that makes you see how hard they hit, as the clouds ripple. And what makes the fight seem more personal is the sound design from the sound effects of the impact, the crowd's cheer, and the announcer's reaction, plus the adding of the music. Speaking of the sound, I think all of the songs in Tiger Mask W are bangers. I love all the music because it's always fun and energetic. And how they use Tiger Mask W's opening theme as his wrestling opening is hype as hell every time. Having him run out in his cave while his manager introduces him is always just a joy. Also, I cannot tell you how much more hype you feel when there is a crowd cheering with you. We learned this when the COVID-19 pandemic started and you had to watch wrestling in an empty ring, and it just felt kind of off. I think the crowd relationship and the energy is important, and here it is front and center when it needs to be. Tiger Mask W keeps on one-upping itself with every match, whether it be the different kind of outlandish matches such as giant cages, pyramid of rings, and a weird tag team battle, or the outlandish and over-the-top characters, which leads me to how much I actually enjoy the character design in this. Keeping up with its over-the-top feel of the series, the design is larger than life, so they are built like superheroes and villains. The designs of the characters are simple, yet unique. Like, I know the one complaint someone might have is that there are just a ton of characters with the tiger motif. which, yes, I can understand, but each of them put a different unique flair to the Tiger design both visually, through their personality, and through their wrestling style. Let's take a look at the three main characters that use the Tiger motif: Tiger Mask, Tiger the Dark, and the Third. Now, let's take a look at both Tiger Mask and Tiger the Dark. The reason I'm comparing them together is because they are both main characters of the story, because they are contrasting views of a wrestling storyline like I said before. The idea of face and heel is embodied within them, and that can be seen when they're in the ring wrestling with each other. Take a look at both of their colors. They are in direct contrast to one another, so you can generally tell the difference between them. Now, let's talk about their colors and what they mean or invoke. If I were to show you a picture of Tiger Mask before I even talked about the show, and were to ask you, is this a good guy or a bad guy, I think you'd probably say Tiger Mask is a good guy. And the reason is the colors and designs they use for Tiger Mask's costume. He has a cape that makes him look like a classic superhero, and the main color in his costume is yellow, which in color theory provokes joy, and then his dark blue contrast helps balance out the brightness, making him seem a bit more grounded. Now, if I were to show you Tiger the Dark, you would automatically imply he was a villain. Again, it is because of the color. He has a dark red and black color scheme which invokes a sense of rage and malice. Not only does his color scheme invoke that, but his personality and drive for fighting does this as well. Because being a Vegeta character, he's a low-key edgelord. Then we have the Third's character design. He has a gray-green color scheme. His neutral color scheme is great because it contrasts both the protagonists, because to them, he's the final boss, the immovable object that they have to beat. And his green represents envy and malice. The storyline of Tiger Mask W is telling multiple stories at once and are able to juggle them pretty well for the most part. I say this because I honestly feel like Tiger the Dark is kinda just there sometimes and a little overshadowed. But that again might be because of the jobber angle, but still, I think he could have been fleshed out a little bit better besides being the Vegeta. But one of the best storylines they used is the heel turn. The heel turn is self-explanatory. It's when a face decides to turn and be evil. Watching Tiger Mask fall into darkness is a little hard to watch. The vengeance he's been seeking for so many years is so close to happening. But the only way he can do it is to turn on the people who have helped him grow and get stronger. But now he has to break and take down those exact same people. How not just his friends, but the crowd react to his betrayal is really heartbreaking. And because kayfabe isn't a thing, this is all happening for real in their world. And as I stated before, New Japan Pro Wrestling partnered up with Toei Animation to make this anime series, and how they incorporate the actual pro wrestlers from New Japan is really fun. Again, because they're able to do more bizarre hijinks. And they can also do some like weird buck wild shit thanks to it being an anime. And I'm not gonna lie, there is a subtle jab at WWE in the anime, and that is the Mega Wrestling Corporation, GWM, the global wrestling monopoly, whose goal is to buy out smaller promotions to make them work for them. Because WWE seems like a literal global wrestling monopoly sometimes. Every antagonist Tiger Mask face, in essence, is your generic jobber, but that doesn't mean they're boring. Each of them has their own style of fighting, ranging from apparently the power of yoga to literally just holding onto your skull till it cracks and you bleed out. The one thing that Tiger Mask has done personally for me is actually introduce me to Joshi Pro Wrestling. Joshi Pro Wrestling is women's pro wrestling, and from appearances, they just look like J-pop idols who wrestle, but it's much more than that. It has some of the most brutal hits and high-flying attacks that are more hype than some well-known wrestling promotions. Like, I know that WWE and AEW have strong women's division, but for me, I think that they pale in comparison to Joshi Wrestling because of the sheer storytelling that's portrayed. I love shonen battle fights, I love high-octane action, and the incredible fight between good and evil. But if I'm being honest with you, the older I get, the more I enjoy the downtime between big fights. I used to hate having to watch my badass karate boys not doing karate. Instead, they're walking around doing nothing out of the ordinary. It was maddening. But now that I'm older, I enjoy the downtime that it allows you to spend with the character on a personal level. I think it's great because the world of pro wrestling, these guys are colossal titans that have no fear. But out in the real world, they're just regular people just like you and me. going on dates, not knowing what to do, interacting with crowds of people, and just being awkward, I think it's enjoyable to have a sense of humanism into my characters. It allows me to relate to them, and to me, relatable characters are awesome and help me stay invested in long-running series. Knowing that they can feel happy, angry, and even sad, it just feels nice. Tiger Mask W is very symbolic. I mean, even the title of the anime is symbolic. You think it's called Tiger Mask W just like how Dragon Ball Z was to Dragon Ball, which was a continuation of the original series, but to let you know it's a little bit different than the original, we put a random letter behind it. But it actually has a double meaning. The W stands for double U, as in two people, because it's a story of two tigers trying to climb to their goal. And it takes a literal meaning at the climax when they feel like they're wrestling together when they stitch the two masks together to fight. Because only one can face him, but they're together because of the new mask created by one half Tiger Mask and the other half Tiger the Dark. Tiger Mask W is a pro wrestling storyline, but it's also a story about regrets and pride. The two protagonists are climbing this mountain because the guilt weighs on them for not being able to protect someone they care for. So every match they're carrying that burden, and that gives them something to keep moving forward. And yeah, it's melodramatic, but this is a wrestling story. But there's something human about it, because I think we all have regrets that we carry and handle them differently. I know I do. So, okay. In the beginning of the video essay, I told you this video was dedicated to a good friend called Jesse. He loved wrestling, and he and I would talk about it all the time, to the point where he and I started a wrestling podcast. He was actually the guy who introduced me to New Japan and how badass it was. And I found Tiger Mask because of that. So we started to watch it. And then he passed away 3 years ago, out of the random. And for the longest time afterwards, I just honestly couldn't watch wrestling. And that also meant I dropped off watching Tiger Mask. But it wasn't until I saw a video essay by Super Eyepatch Wolf called Professional Wrestling is Beautiful and Stupid and I Love It. And when that came out, I've been watching his videos for a few years. And then when I watched that video, it invigorated my love for wrestling again. Because of the way Super Eyepatch Wolf talked about pro wrestling and how passionate he was about it. That same passion was the same passion Jesse had. It got me out of the funk, and I picked up New Japan and WWE again and fell in love with it all over. Which led me to again rewatching Tiger Mask W. To be honest with you, Tiger Mask is not an anime for everyone, and this is never going to be a video essay to tell you why you should watch Tiger Mask, nor is it a beautiful mess, because there's nothing really bad I can say about it whatsoever. No, this video was to talk and explain to you why Tiger Mask is a love letter to pro wrestling, from how the industry works, how they handle faces and heels, and how they tell outlandish stories that turn normal people into these titans of power. The people who worked on this actually feel like pro wrestling fans, and it shows. And in the end of it, that's what true pro wrestling is. Yeah, it may not be real, but the passion people have put into it is what makes it truly genuine. Hey guys, thank you for watching this video. If you want to see what I'm up to, you can follow me on Twitter. That is where I'm posting stuff on my upcoming videos and just random bad jokes. The next video I have planned is being written, so check them out. Don't forget to subscribe and share if you enjoy my content so you can get the notifications on my next videos. The link is down below for all of this. And always stay awesome and keep on keeping on, and whatever you're going through, you've got this. I believe in you. Later guys.